The air in the car is thick, a soupy mix of expensive leather, my husband's cloying cologne, and the faint, powdery scent of his mother's perfume wafting from the backseat. It's a toxic perfume I'm intimately familiar with, a scent that always seems to announce judgment before she even speaks. My thumb hovers over the screen of my phone, the glass cool and indifferent beneath my trembling skin. The phone is connected to the car's Bluetooth. One tap. That's all it would take. One simple tap to detonate the carefully constructed universe we're all pretending to inhabit. Mark is driving, one hand on the wheel, a picture of calm, suburban contentment. He glances at me, a quick, proprietary smile that doesn't reach his eyes. It's the kind of smile he's been giving me for months, a mask meant to reassure me that the cracks I see in our foundation are just my imagination. In the back, Eleanor prattles on about her garden club, her voice a steady, lulling drone that sets my teeth on edge. They think this is a normal Sunday. A simple, dutiful trip to take the matriarch to the airport after a week-long visit. They think I'm still the same woman I was when she arrived. The compliant wife. The one who smooths things over. The one who never, ever makes a scene. My heart is a trapped bird beating against my ribs, a frantic, desperate rhythm against the placid hum of the engine. Just press play, a voice in my head whispers. Burn it all down. If you've ever felt that cold, terrifying power of holding a secret that could shatter everything, tell me about it in the comments. I read every single one. And if this is your first time here, please subscribe. It helps me more than you could ever know. It wasn't always like this. The silence between us used to be comfortable. It used to be the easy quiet of two people who knew each other so well that words were often unnecessary. I remember standing with Mark in the shell of this house, before the drywall went up, before the paint, before the life we were supposed to live in it was even a blueprint. The air smelled of sawdust and promise. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder, and we looked out through the framed-out space where a picture window would one day be. "This is it, he'd whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "This is where we build everything," and we did. We picked out paint colors, argued playfully over tile, and spent weekends assembling flat-pack furniture until our hands were raw and we were laughing on the floor, exhausted and happy. He was my partner, my best friend, the man who held my hand through a miscarriage, who told me I was beautiful when I felt broken, who made me believe in the kind of forever they write songs about. Our life was a carefully tended garden. We had our routines, coffee together every morning, him reading the news on his tablet, me doing the crossword. Friday night was always pizza and a movie, curled up on the couch we'd spent weeks searching for. Sunday mornings were for the farmer's market, his hand always finding mine as we navigated the crowds. It was a good life. A solid life. Predictable, maybe, but I loved its predictability. It felt safe. It felt like home. He was the sturdy oak, and I was the ivy, and I never once imagined the oak could rot from the inside out. I never imagined that the safety he provided was a cage. I just hadn't seen the bars of yet. I remember one specific evening, maybe a year before the world tilted on its axis. We were sitting on the back patio, the sky turning a bruised purple, the first stars beginning to prick the darkness. He was grilling steaks, the smell of charcoal and sizzling fat hanging in the humid summer air. He looked over at me, his face illuminated by the glow of the grill, and he had this look of such profound contentment. "I'm a lucky man," he said, and it wasn't a line. I could feel the truth of it in his voice. I felt it too. I was a lucky woman. I had the handsome, successful husband, the beautiful house in the suburbs, the life everyone told me I should want. And I did want it. I cherished it. I protected it. I watered the garden, pulled the weeds, and never, for a second, considered that the real poison was being poured right at the roots, by the very person who had helped me plant it. He was a man of grand gestures and quiet assurances. For our 5th anniversary, he didn't just buy me jewelry. He secretly commissioned a painter to create a portrait of the spot where we had our first picnic, a place I'd mentioned offhandedly years before and thought he'd forgotten. It hung in our entryway, a daily testament to his thoughtfulness. When my father was sick, Mark handled everything. He coordinated with the doctors, managed the hospital bills, and sat with me for hours in sterile waiting rooms, holding my hand and letting me cry, never once making me feel like a burden. He was my rock. My steady, unshakable rock. Everyone said so. My friends, my family. "You're so lucky to have Mark," they'd say. "He's one of the good ones," and I believed them. I would nod, a proud smile on my face, and think, yes, he is. He is my good one. The foundation of our life felt like bedrock. It felt immutable. How could I have known it was all built on sand? How could I have known that the man who could remember the location of a picnic from a decade ago would soon be unable to remember the lies he'd told me just an hour before? The change was insidious. It wasn't a sudden earthquake. It was a slow, creeping erosion. It was so subtle at first that I told myself I was imagining it. The inciting incident wasn't a lipstick-stained caller or a mysterious late-night phone call. It was quieter, more mundane, and far more chilling. It was a charge on our shared credit card statement. A name I didn't recognize. The Gilded Lily. It was a floral shop, an expensive one across town. The charge was for $217. My first thought was for me. My birthday was in a few weeks. Mark was always an early planner. I smiled to myself, picturing the extravagant bouquet that would soon arrive at my office, making all my coworkers jealous. I imagined the little card tucked inside, his familiar, slightly messy script telling me he loved me. I closed the laptop, a warm feeling spreading through my chest. He was so thoughtful. But my birthday came and went. There were other gifts, a beautiful watch, a weekend trip he'd planned, but no flowers. Not a single petal. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe he'd changed his mind, gotten me the watch instead. It was a better gift, a more permanent one. But the charge lingered in the back of my mind, a tiny, dissonant note in the symphony of our perfect life. A few weeks later, I asked him about it casually. We were in the kitchen, I was unloading the dishwasher, and he was leaning against the counter, scrolling through his phone. "Hey, I saw a charge a while back for a place called the Gilded Lily," I said, my voice light, trying to sound breezy. "Did you send someone flowers?" I watched his face. For a split second, a flicker of something unreadable crossed his features. Panic? No, that was too strong a word. It was more like a brief, momentary system reboot. Then the mask of easy charm snapped back into place. "Oh, that," he said, not looking up from his phone. "Yeah, it was for Henderson's wife. She had surgery." The whole department chipped in. Henderson. His boss. It made perfect sense. It was a plausible, simple explanation. And yet, something about it felt wrong. The way he said it so quickly, the way his eyes remained glued to his screen, the way he hadn't mentioned it before. Why wouldn't he have told me? We talked about everything. I put the last plate away, the ceramic clinking softly in the sudden silence. "That was nice of you," I said. My voice sounded hollow to my own ears. He just grunted in response, still absorbed in his phone. The conversation was over. But for me, it was just the beginning. The first crack had appeared. And once you see a crack, you can't unsee it. You start looking for others. My early struggles were a pathetic, silent dance of denial and suspicion. I became a ghost in my own home, a phantom investigator haunting the edges of my own life. I started small. I'd check his phone when he was in the shower. I felt disgusting doing it, my hands shaking, my heart pounding with a mixture of guilt and dread. I'd scroll through his texts, his call logs, his emails. Nothing. It was all clean. Spotless even. Work emails, texts from his friends about golf, a confirmation for a dinner reservation he'd made for us. It was the phone of a devoted husband. The cleanliness of it was, in itself, suspicious. It was too perfect. It was as if it had been curated. I started paying attention to the little things, the subtle shifts in our routine. He began working late more often. "Big project at work," he'd say, sighing with performative exhaustion when he finally walked through the door. "We're all burning the midnight oil." I would nod, make him a plate of food, and listen to him talk about spreadsheets and deadlines, all the while a cold knot of dread was tightening in my stomach. He started guarding his phone like it was a state secret. It was always face down on the counter. It went with him to the bathroom. It sat on the nightstand on his side of the bed, just out of my reach. One night, a text came in while we were watching a movie. The phone was on the coffee table between us. It vibrated, lighting up the screen. Before I could even register what was happening, his hand shot out and snatched it, flipping it over with a speed that was almost violent. "Work," he muttered, not taking his eyes off the TV. But I saw it. I saw the name on the screen for a fraction of a second. It wasn't Henderson or accounting, it was just a single initial. K. My blood ran cold.
I didn't say anything.
I sat there, the sound of the movie fading into a meaningless drone, the popcorn turning to ash in my mouth. Who was K? I spent the next week driving myself crazy. I went through the contacts in his phone again. No K. I checked his social media friends. There were dozens of women whose names started with K. Karen from accounting? Kelly from his college alumni group? Kimberly, the new neighbor down the street? Each possibility was a fresh stab of paranoia. I was losing my mind. I was exhausted, not sleeping, picking at my food. Mark, of course, noticed. He put on his concerned husband face, the one that used to make me melt. "Are you okay, Em?" he'd ask, his voice dripping with synthetic sympathy. "You seem stressed. Is everything all right at work?" He'd rub my back, his touch feeling alien and invasive. And the gaslighting began. I tried to bring up my concerns, phrasing them as gently as I could. "You've been so distant lately," I'd say. "Is something wrong?" And he would turn it back on me with surgical precision. "I'm not distant, honey. I'm just tired. This project is killing me. Maybe you're the one who's distant. You've been so quiet, or worse. You're being paranoid, Em. You know you have a tendency to overthink things."
"We're fine."
"I love you," he'd say it with such conviction, looking me straight in the eye, that I'd almost believe him. I'd feel a wave of shame wash over me. He was right. I was being crazy. He was under a lot of pressure at work. I was being a needy, insecure wife. I would apologize, and he would hold me, stroking my hair, murmuring comforting words that felt like poison. For a day or two, things would feel normal again. I'd force myself to believe the lie. But then another crack would appear. A scent on his shirt that wasn't mine. A last-minute business dinner on a Friday night. An excuse that didn't quite add up. The cycle would begin again, each rotation pulling me deeper into a vortex of anxiety and suspicion. I was living a double life. To the world, and to him, I was the same Emily. But inside, I was a detective, a spy, a madwoman, gathering scraps of evidence that amounted to nothing and everything all at once. The perfect life we had built was starting to feel like a movie set, and I was the only one who knew the walls were made of cardboard. The challenges began to rise, becoming less like hairline fractures and more like gaping chasms in our life. My passive searching turned into active hunting. The paranoia solidified into a grim, joyless mission. I was no longer just looking for proof. I was building a case. I started a private journal, a small, black moleskine I kept hidden in a box of old college textbooks. In it, I documented everything. Dates, times, excuses. The late nights, the business trips that seemed to pop up out of nowhere. The time he came home from a team-building exercise with a faint sunburn on the back of his neck in the middle of October. The receipt I found in his coat pocket for 2 glasses of wine at a hotel bar across town, dated for an afternoon he was supposed to be in a marathon meeting. I collected these details like a grim archivist, each entry a small, hard piece of a puzzle I didn't want to solve. The lies became more frequent and sloppier. He was getting arrogant, confident in my gullibility. He'd tell me he was at a client dinner in one part of the city, but the location tracker on his phone, which he didn't know I checked obsessively, would show him in a completely different neighborhood. When I gently questioned the discrepancy, he'd have a ready-made excuse. "Oh, the client changed the venue at the last minute. I forgot to tell you," he'd say it with a dismissive wave of his hand, as if I were a slightly annoying intern he had to manage. The emotional toll was devastating. I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. I was constantly on edge, my stomach in a perpetual knot. Every notification on his phone sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. Every time he walked out the door, I wondered if he was going to her.
Who was she?
The question haunted me. Was she prettier than me? Younger? Funnier? I tortured myself with imagined scenarios, picturing him with a faceless woman, laughing at her jokes, touching her hair, whispering the same things he used to whisper to me. The intimacy in our own marriage evaporated. When he touched me, my skin crawled. His kisses felt like a violation. I would lie next to him in bed, inches apart, feeling like we were on different continents. I would feign sleep, listening to the rhythm of his breathing, wondering if he was dreaming of her. I knew I couldn't go on like this. The not knowing was eating me alive. I needed definitive proof. Something he couldn't lie his way out of. That's when I bought the voice-activated recorder. It was a tiny little thing no bigger than a flash drive. I ordered it online, and it arrived in a plain brown package. I felt like a criminal, unwrapping it in the privacy of my home office. I charged it, read the instructions, and waited for my moment. The next morning, as he was getting ready for work, I told him I needed to borrow his car to run some errands. "Mine's low on gas," I lied, my voice sounding surprisingly steady. "Sure, honey," he said, tossing me the keys without a second thought. As soon as he was gone, I went to the garage. The car still smelled faintly of him. I opened the passenger door, and my heart hammered against my ribs. Where to put it? Under the seat? In the glove compartment? I settled on the pocket on the back of the passenger seat, tucked deep inside where it wouldn't be seen. My hands were slick with sweat as I positioned it. I turned it on, the tiny red light blinking once before going dark. Then I walked back into the house and waited. It was the longest day of my life. I couldn't focus on anything. I just sat on the couch, staring at the clock, my mind racing. What if he found it? What if there was nothing to find? Which was worse? When he came home that evening, he was in a cheerful mood. He kissed me, asked about my day, and seemed completely normal. He didn't mention anything about the car. After he went to bed, I crept out to the garage, my bare feet cold on the concrete floor. I retrieved the recorder, my fingers fumbling in the dark. Back in my office, I locked the door, put on my headphones, and plugged the device into my laptop. I held my breath and pressed play. For a long time, there was nothing but the sound of the engine, the radio playing softly, the click of the turn signal. My heart sank. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was crazy. And then I heard it. His voice. "Hey, I'm on my way," a pause. Then, a woman's voice, warm and familiar, a voice that made the blood drain from my face. "I can't wait to see you," it was Kate. My friend, Kate. The one who had coffee with me just last week, listening with a sympathetic ear as I confessed I was worried about Mark, that he seemed distant. The one who had put her hand on mine and said, "He's just stressed, Em.
He adores you."
Don't ever doubt that. The world tilted and went silent. The only sound was the blood rushing in my ears. I kept listening, my body frozen in a state of shock. I listened to them meet. I listened to them kiss. I listened to them talk about their day. And then I listened to them talk about me. "Is Emily suspicious at all?" Kate asked, her voice a sickening parody of concern. "Nah," Mark said, his voice casual, dismissive. "She's a little neurotic, but she trusts me. She'd never imagine this. She thinks I'm at a client dinner." "Good," Kate purred. "I don't want anything to spoil this," they laughed. A shared, intimate laugh. The sound of it shattered something deep inside me. I ripped the headphones off, a strangled sob escaping my throat. I stumbled to the bathroom and was violently sick. I knelt on the cold tile floor, shaking uncontrollably, the sound of their laughter echoing in my head. The man I loved, the woman I trusted, had conspired to destroy me. And they had laughed. That night marked a profound shift inside me. The grief didn't vanish, but it crystallized. It hardened from a messy, debilitating sorrow into something cold, sharp, and focused. The tears stopped. The shaking subsided. Lying in bed that night, listening to the steady, oblivious breathing of the man next to me, I felt a strange and terrible calm settle over me. The goal was no longer to get him back, to fix what was broken. I now understood that it was irreparable. The goal was no longer to understand why. The why didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was control. He had taken my trust, my sense of security, my reality, and twisted them into a weapon against me. He and Kate had made me the fool in a story they were writing together. My new mission was to take back the pen, to write the ending myself. The next morning, I woke up before him. I looked at his sleeping face, the face I had loved for a decade, and I felt nothing. The love had been burned out of me, leaving behind only scorched earth. I went downstairs, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a strategist. My first call was to a divorce attorney. Not just any attorney, but the best, most ruthless one in the city. Her name was Diana Sterling, and her reputation preceded her. They called her the Shark. I had to wait 2 days for an appointment. It was the longest 48 hours of my life, a period of forced normalcy that felt like holding my breath underwater. I had to smile at Mark, ask about his day, and pretend that my world hadn't been reduced to rubble. I had to text Kate back when she sent me a message asking if I wanted to get manicures. So busy this week. Rain check soon. I typed, my fingers steady, a bitter taste in my mouth. My meeting with Diana was in a sterile, intimidating office on the 40th floor of a downtown skyscraper. She was a woman in her 50s, impeccably dressed, with intelligent eyes that seemed to see right through me. I didn't cry. I laid it all out for her, my voice even and calm. I told her about the credit card charges, the late nights, the lies. Then, I took out the small digital recorder and placed it on her polished mahogany desk. "And I have this," I said. I played her a small, damning segment, the part where they laughed about my gullibility. She listened, her expression unreadable. When it was over, she simply nodded. "Good," she said, her voice crisp. "This is very good. But it's not enough for a court of law. It's leverage. What we need now is the financial paper trail." She explained that the recordings, while emotionally devastating, were legally murky.
But money?
Money was concrete. For the next few weeks, I became a forensic accountant in my own marriage. Diana connected me with a discreet professional, a man named Arthur, who specialized in finding hidden assets. Guided by him, I began a quiet, meticulous excavation of our financial life. I learned how to read bank statements like a novel, how to follow the trail of transfers between accounts. I discovered a credit card in Mark's name that I never knew existed. The statements were sent to his office. I managed to get access to the account online by correctly guessing his security questions, his mother's maiden name, the name of his first pet. Pathetically easy. The statement was a roadmap of his affair. Hotel rooms. Expensive dinners for two at restaurants he'd told me were overrated, jewelry from a store we'd never been to. And there they were, multiple charges from the Gilded Lily. He wasn't just buying her flowers. He had a standing weekly order. Every week, a fresh bouquet delivered to her office. The woman who had patted my hand and told me not to worry was receiving a weekly tribute funded by my husband from our joint account. The audacity of it took my breath away. It wasn't just a betrayal, it was a performance. They were living a parallel life, a better, more exciting life, and they were using mine to pay for it. I downloaded every statement, every receipt, every piece of evidence. I created a file, encrypted and password protected, a digital bomb waiting to be detonated. I continued to place the recorder in his car periodically. I now had hours of their conversations. I heard them plan weekend trips while Mark was supposedly on business. I heard them complain about me, how I was clingy lately, how I seemed depressed. "I think she knows something's up," Kate said in one recording, a sliver of anxiety in her voice. "Don't worry," Mark's voice soothed. "I can handle her. She'll never do anything. She's not a fighter." That was his fatal miscalculation. He thought he had married a doormat. He had no idea he had created a warrior. The sadness was gone, replaced by a cold, clear purpose. He thought I was playing checkers. He had no idea I was setting up a chessboard, and he was already in checkmate.
He just couldn't see it yet.
Just as my case was solidifying, my resolve hardening into something unbreakable, the universe threw me a curveball. Mark came home one evening with an announcement. "Guess what, honey?" he said, a broad, salesman's smile on his face. "My mom is coming to visit. For a whole week." My blood turned to ice. Eleanor, his mother. A woman who viewed me as a pleasant, but ultimately inadequate accessory for her perfect son. She was a master of the backhanded compliment, the subtle criticism disguised as a helpful suggestion. Her presence in my home was always a trial, a week-long performance of being the perfect daughter-in-law.
But now?
Now it felt like a strategic military occupation. I knew exactly why he was doing this. He sensed the shift in me, the new coolness in my demeanor. He didn't know what it was, but it unnerved him. He was bringing in his staunchest ally, his most powerful shield. He knew I would never, ever cause a scene in front of his mother. It was a checkmate move, or so he thought. He was using his mother as a human shield, and in doing so, he was trapping me in my own home with my own executioner. The house, my sanctuary, became a prison overnight. The week of her visit was the most exquisite torture I have ever endured. I had to play the part of the happy, devoted wife while my husband's mother watched my every move, her sharp eyes missing nothing. I had to smile and make pleasant conversation with the woman whose son was systematically dismantling my life. I had to listen to her sing his praises over dinner. "Mark has always been so driven," she'd say, beaming at him. "He works so hard for this family." "You're a very lucky woman, Emily," I would smile, a rictus grin plastered on my face, and say, "Yes, I am," while the words turned to acid in my mouth. The tension in the house was a palpable thing. It was in the forced cheerfulness of our conversations, the way Mark would place a proprietary hand on my back, a public display of affection that was a cold, calculated warning. It was in the way I would accidentally meet his eyes across the dinner table and see a flicker of smug satisfaction. He thought he had me cornered. He thought his mother's presence had rendered me powerless. The nights were the worst. I would lie in our bed, a chasm of cold sheets between us, and listen to the sounds of the house. The gentle hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the floorboards as Eleanor moved about in the guest room down the hall. I felt like an actress in a terrible play, forced to perform for an audience of two. I was surrounded by the enemy, with no one to confide in, no one to tell. My only comfort was the secret folder on my laptop, the growing mountain of evidence that proved I wasn't crazy. I would sneak into my office late at night after they were both asleep and go over it all again and again. The bank statements, the transcripts of the recordings I'd painstakingly typed out, the timeline of his lies. It was my anchor in a sea of insanity. It reminded me that this wasn't in my head. It was real, and it was all going to end. The deepening crisis came to a head on the fourth night of Eleanor's visit. Mark had to work late, he called, his voice full of fake regret. "I'm so sorry, honey. This deal is just at a critical stage. I'll be home as soon as I can. Give my love to Mom." I knew where he was. I had a new recorder in his car. He was with Kate. They were at a hotel across town. While I was at home, making pot roast for his mother, he was with my friend. The hypocrisy was staggering. Eleanor and I ate in near silence. She tried to make conversation, but my responses were monosyllabic. I could feel her studying me, her disapproval a heavy weight in the room. "You seem tired, dear," she said, dabbing her lips with a napkin. "Are you feeling all right?" "Just a headache," I mumbled. Later that evening, as I was cleaning up the kitchen, she came and stood in the doorway. "You know, Emily," she began, her voice deceptively gentle. "A man like my Mark, a man with his ambition, he needs a supportive partner. He needs a soft place to land at the end of a hard day. He doesn't need more stress at home." The implication was clear. I was the problem. My moodiness, my headaches, my lack of wifely enthusiasm were the source of the tension she could so clearly feel. I was failing in my duties. I just stood there, my hands submerged in the warm, soapy water, my back to her. I didn't say a word. I let her judgment wash over me. Because I knew something she didn't. I knew that her perfect, ambitious son was a liar and a cheat. And I knew that soon, very soon, she would know it too. The soft place he was landing wasn't with me, and the crash was going to be anything but. All seemed lost. I was trapped, silenced, and being blamed for the very atmosphere of misery he had created. He was going to get away with it. He was going to sail through this, leaving me in the wreckage, while his mother patted his back and told him he deserved better. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I lay awake, a cold fury burning in my chest. He had underestimated me. They both had. They thought my silence was weakness. They had no idea it was the quiet before the storm. The turning point came on the last night of Eleanor's visit, the night before the fateful car ride. Mark had pulled out all the stops for a farewell dinner. He'd cooked her favorite meal, braised short ribs, and opened a bottle of expensive Cabernet. The whole evening was a masterclass in performance art. He was the charming host, the devoted son, the loving husband. He told funny anecdotes from his childhood, making his mother laugh until she wiped tears from her eyes. He refilled my wine glass, placing his hand over mine for a moment, a gesture of feigned intimacy for his mother's benefit. I played my part. I smiled. I laughed at his stories. I complimented the food. I was a step-forward wife, a hollow shell of politeness. Inside, I was a coiled spring, wound so tight I thought I might snap. After dinner, Eleanor went to the living room to watch her favorite television show. Mark and I were in the kitchen, clearing the plates. He cornered me near the sink, trapping me between his body and the counter. The smell of wine on his breath was overpowering. He was smug, victorious. He leaned in close, his voice a low, condescending whisper. "See," he murmured, his lips close to my ear. "This is nice, isn't it? A nice, quiet week." "No drama," he paused, letting the words hang in the air. "Just be normal, Em. Don't make a scene. It's better for everyone," that was it. That was the line. The final, patronizing instruction from the man who had systematically detonated my life. Don't make a scene. He wasn't asking me. He was commanding me. He was telling me to swallow my pain, my humiliation, my rage, for his convenience. To continue to be the silent, complicit partner in my own destruction. In that moment, something inside me shifted permanently. It wasn't a loud, angry snap, but a quiet, cold click, like a lock falling into place. My fear, my grief, my indecision, it all vanished, replaced by a diamond-hard certainty. He had just handed me the script for my final act. I wouldn't make a scene. I wouldn't yell or scream or throw plates. I would do exactly what he asked. I would be quiet. I would be normal. And I would destroy him so silently, so completely, that he would never even see it coming. I looked up at him, my eyes meeting his. I let a small, tired smile touch my lips. "You're right," I said, my voice soft, defeated. "You're right. It's better this way." I saw the relief wash over his face. He thought he'd won. He thought he'd successfully managed my emotions, quelled the little rebellion he'd sensed brewing. He leaned in and kissed my forehead, a gesture of ownership, of a master patting his dog. "Good girl," he whispered. He walked out of the kitchen, leaving me standing there, the scent of his betrayal hanging in the air. I stood perfectly still for a full minute, my hands gripping the edge of the granite countertop, so tightly my knuckles turned white. Then I took a slow, deep breath. The war was over. The time for the execution had arrived. I went into my office and opened my laptop. I found the audio file I had been saving. It was from 2 weeks ago. A particularly vile recording. One where they not only laughed about me, but where Mark complained about his mother's impending visit. Where he called her overbearing and clueless, where Kate had cooed, "Poor baby, having to deal with both of us at once." I renamed the file. I didn't call it evidence or the truth. I gave it a simple, innocuous name. Sunday Drive Playlist. I dragged the file to my phone and made sure it was ready. I had my weapon. It wasn't a gun or a knife. It was something far more lethal. It was the truth, in his own voice. And I was going to use it to create the quietest, most devastating scene he could never have imagined. The next morning, the air in the house is thick with a false sense of peace. The storm is past, or so Mark believes. He's cheerful, humming as he carries his mother's suitcase downstairs. Eleanor is radiant, refreshed from her week of being waited on, convinced of her son's marital bliss. I am a ghost at the breakfast table, sipping my coffee, a silent observer of this final, fraudulent act of domesticity. It was such a lovely visit, Eleanor gushes, patting my hand. Her skin is dry and papery. You two have built such a wonderful life. We have Mom to thank for raising such a good man. I reply, my voice smooth as silk. I meet Mark's eyes over the rim of my coffee cup. He gives me a small, approving nod. Good girl. We load the car in a comfortable, practiced rhythm. Mark puts the suitcases in the trunk. I hold the door for Eleanor, making sure she's settled in the back seat. I get into the passenger seat, the leather cool against my skin. The stage is set. The actors are in place. The ride to the airport is about 45 minutes. 45 minutes for the rest of our lives to begin. For the first 10 minutes, the conversation is predictable. Eleanor talks about her flight, her garden, the neighbors she needs to catch up with. Mark makes jokes, asking her not to have too much fun without him. I stay quiet, my hands resting in my lap, my phone clutched in my right hand. The silence from me is not unusual. I'm often the quiet one in their presence. They don't notice a thing. We should play some music, I say, my voice startlingly calm. It's a long drive. Good idea, honey, Mark says, his eyes on the road. Put on that new indie playlist you like. I have something else in mind, I say. I tap my phone, open the music app, and connect it to the car's Bluetooth system. The car chimes softly, confirming the connection. I scroll to the file I prepared last night. Sunday drive playlist. My heart is a slow, heavy drum against my ribs. My thumb hovers over the play button. I look at Mark. He's relaxed, one hand on the wheel, tapping his fingers to a rhythm only he can hear. He's already thinking about his freedom, about the call he'll make to Kate as soon as he drops us off. In the rearview mirror, I can see Eleanor, serene, looking out the window at the passing suburbs. They are so beautifully, blissfully unaware. I press play. For a second, there is only silence. A soft, digital hiss. And then, his voice fills the car. Not his driving voice, not his talking to his mother voice. His other voice. The one I now know so well. The secret voice. I can't believe she's finally leaving tomorrow, Mark's recorded voice says, thick with exasperation. The car goes utterly silent. The real Mark, the one next to me, freezes.
His fingers stop tapping.
I can feel the sudden, violent tension that radiates from him. In the back seat, Eleanor's pleasant expression falters. She frowns, confused. I know, baby. A woman's voice coos through the speakers. Kate's voice. Warm, intimate. Poor you, having to play the perfect son all week, Mark's head snaps toward me. His eyes are wide with disbelief, then a dawning, sickening horror. His face, which was tan and relaxed moments ago, is rapidly draining of all color. He fumbles for the console, trying to turn off the stereo, but his hands are shaking. She's just so overbearing. The recording of my husband continues, his voice dripping with contempt. Constantly asking questions, judging everything. And Emily just laps it up. It's pathetic. From the back seat, there is a sharp intake of breath. A small, wounded gasp. It's Eleanor. I don't look at her. I don't look at Mark. I stare straight ahead, through the windshield, my expression serene. The recording continues. The sound of a kiss, wet and obscene in the enclosed space of the car. Then Kate's voice again. Well, you'll be free tomorrow. You can come straight to my place. I'll make it all better. Is Emily suspicious at all? Mark's recorded voice asks.
Nah.
She's been a little moody, but she trusts me. I can handle her. She'll never do anything. She's not a fighter. The car is a vacuum. The air has been sucked out of it. There is only the sound of the recording, a brutal, undeniable truth echoing off the leather and glass. Mark finally manages to stab at the power button on the console, silencing the voices. The sudden quiet is more deafening than the sound was. We drive on in absolute, suffocating silence for what feels like an eternity. The only sound is the hum of the tires on the asphalt. Then Eleanor speaks. Her voice is a thin, brittle whisper from the back seat. "Mark, what was that?" Mark opens his mouth, but no sound comes out. He looks like a fish gasping for air. He's looking at me, his eyes pleading, then flashing with pure, unadulterated rage.
It's
fake. He finally chokes out, his voice hoarse. It's AI.
She's
going crazy. She made it up. He's grasping at straws, his mind scrambling for a lie big enough to cover this. But it's too late. The delivery is too perfect, the voice is too real. His mother has been listening to his voice for over 40 years. She knows. "Pull over," Eleanor says, her voice no longer a whisper. It's cold, hard steel. "What?" Mark says, his voice cracking. "I said, pull the car over." Now he doesn't. He keeps driving, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, his face a mask of panic. He's trying to outrun the truth. But the truth is in the car with us. As he's fumbling for his next lie, my phone buzzes in my hand. It's an email notification. I glance down. The subject line reads, "Confirmation it's from Diana, my lawyer." I turn the screen toward Mark. He glances at it, his eyes darting from the road to the phone. He reads the first line of the email preview. "This is to confirm that the divorce petition has been filed and Mr. Mark Turner has been served at his place of business at 10:15 a.m. And furthermore, the motion to freeze all joint assets pending discovery has been granted by the court." His face collapses. It doesn't just fall. It implodes. The smugness, the arrogance, the charm, it all vanishes, leaving behind the terrified, weak man he truly is. He finally understands. This wasn't a scene, this was an execution. The recording was just the emotional severing. The legal and financial decapitation had already taken place while he was eating breakfast and humming to himself. He thought I was throwing a tantrum. He didn't realize I had already burned down the kingdom, salted the earth, and filed the paperwork to claim the ashes. He looks at me, his eyes wide with a new kind of terror. The terror of being completely and utterly outmaneuvered. He sees me for the first time, not as his neurotic, compliant wife, but as the architect of his ruin. In the rearview mirror, I see his mother's face. She is looking at me, not with anger, but with a look I have never seen from her before.
awe.
A grudging, horrified respect. She knows she's been played, too. She was a pawn in my game, not his shield. The power dynamic in the car in our lives has just shifted, permanently and irrevocably. We arrive at the airport terminal. Mark pulls the car to the curb, his movements stiff, robotic. No one speaks. The silence is a living entity, thick with betrayal and shame. I get out of the car. I walk to the trunk, open it, and lift out Eleanor's suitcase and Mark's briefcase, which he was planning to take to Kate's. I place them on the curb. I don't slam the trunk. I close it with a soft, final click. I walk back to the passenger door, which is still open. Mark is staring at me, his mouth slightly agape, a portrait of utter devastation. Eleanor is frozen in the back seat. I look at him. "You're right," I say, my voice quiet, clear, and steady. "It's better not to make a scene." I close the car door, turn around without a backward glance, and walk away, leaving them there on the curb with their luggage and the smoking ruins of the life they thought they controlled. The drive home is the quietest drive of my life. The silence in the car is different now. It's not the tense, suffocating silence of a secret being kept. It's the clean, expansive silence of a truth revealed. It's my silence. It belongs to me. I don't cry. I feel strangely light, as if I've been carrying a massive weight for years and have just now set it down. I drive through the familiar streets of our neighborhood, but everything looks different. The manicured lawns, the big, silent houses. It all looks like a set for a play that has finally ended. When I pull into our driveway, my driveway, the house looks different, too. It's no longer a prison. It's just a building. A collection of wood and glass and memories, some of which I will now have to discard. The first thing I do is call a locksmith. While I wait, I walk through the house room by room. I see him everywhere. In the chair he always sat in, on the side of the bed he slept on, in the coffee mug he used every morning. But the images are fading, like old photographs left out in the sun. They no longer have any power over me. The locksmith arrives, a cheerful man who has no idea he is a ceremonial guard, presiding over the changing of a regime. He works quickly, replacing the locks on every door. When he hands me the new set of keys, they feel solid and real in my hand. They are the keys to my new life. The legal battle that followed was, as Diana predicted, brutally short. With the frozen assets, the documented financial infidelity, and the sheer weight of his lies now exposed, Mark had no leverage. He was a general with no army. He tried to fight, of course. He hired a lawyer who tried to paint me as an unstable, vengeful shrew. But Diana dismantled him. She presented the evidence calmly, methodically. The bank statements, the hotel receipts, the transcripts of the recordings, which, while not primary evidence, painted a vivid picture of his character for the judge. He crumbled. He settled for far less than he thought he was entitled to. He lost the house. He lost a significant portion of his savings. He lost his dignity. Kate, I heard through the grapevine, disappeared from the picture almost immediately. She had signed up for a thrilling affair with a powerful, successful man. She had not signed up for a broke, disgraced divorce embroiled in a messy public scandal. I never heard from Eleanor again. I imagine the car ride to the airport was just the beginning of a conversation she never wanted to have with her perfect son. I imagine her disappointment was a bitter pill to swallow. I sold the house. It held too many ghosts. I bought a small apartment in the city, a place that was entirely my own, filled with my books, my music, my art. A place that felt like me. For a long time, there was a quiet sadness. A mourning, not for the man he became, but for the man I thought he was. A grief for the future we were supposed to have, the one we'd sketched out in a half-built house that smelled of sawdust and promise. But slowly, gradually, that sadness was replaced by something else.
Peace.
A quiet, steady strength I never knew I possessed. I learned that I was not ivy, needing an oak to cling to. I was the oak. I had been all along. Sometimes I think about that final command he gave me in the kitchen. Don't make a scene. He thought a scene was about yelling, screaming, breaking things. He didn't understand that the most powerful, most devastating scenes are the quiet ones. The ones that unfold in the silence of a car, with a single tap on a screen. The ones where the truth is allowed to speak for itself, in its own terrible, clear voice. He was right. I didn't make a scene. I made a choice. I made a new life. And it is quiet, and it is peaceful, and it is entirely my own. The quietest moments are often the loudest. If this story found you in a quiet moment of your own, let me know where you're listening from. Your presence here means the world, and subscribing helps bring more of these stories to life.